Hi guys, today we're going to talk about breathing. So whether you're somebody who is an athlete and you want to have more endurance, or you're someone who's concerned about COVID and you just want to have better lung health, we're going to try to help you out today with some tips on how to breathe better. So the first thing we need to look at is how your lungs function. Our body, as a general rule, is lazy. We take the path of least resistance in every activity that we do. Your system and your brain is set up to conserve energy constantly, and this goes for breathing as well. So my lungs will only expand as far as my rib cage will let them. So if I look at my rib cage, in between each rib is a muscle called an intercostal. And as I breathe in and that rib cage expands, those intercostals or rib cage muscles have to stretch to allow my rib cage to expand, to allow my lungs to completely fill. In most people, this doesn't happen because this is definitely one area of the body that is part of the use it or lose it phenomenon. If you do not fully breathe in and stretch those intercostals and move your ribs when you breathe every day, that muscle, much like any other muscle in your body, gets tighter and more restricted, and you will only then breathe into what's available. So you take shorter breaths. It takes more breaths per minute or per hour to get the same amount of oxygen in because your body's trying to be more efficient and not have to work harder against the passive resistance of those intercostals and that rib cage. So we're going to look at some postural things that can help you breathe better just by being aware of where you're at in space. So I know you think, a physical therapist is going to nag me about posture. Unfortunately, this is one of those situations where posture really does matter. So if you look at the way we sit, if we're sitting, whether I'm sitting for my job, whether I'm sitting and spending a lot of time on my electronic device and social media, how you sit can have a big impact on your body's natural tightness and my functional abilities. So when I sit, a majority of people as they sit down tend to sit with that posterior pelvic tilt or kind of that rounded butt. The minute I sit with a rounded butt, that sets up the other half of my body, my upper body, to be forward as well. If I'm forward, upper back is forward, head is forward, you are literally closing down your rib cage and you have less space to breathe. So just that slumped butt sitting can make a big difference in my ability to breathe in well. Try it if you don't believe me. So tuck your butt as far as you can or sit in a very slumped position and try to breathe in. Versus sit down with your butt rolled out and try to sit on your butt bones and then take a big breath in. There was literally more milliseconds of breathing when I rotated just by rotating my pelvis forward and getting more of that extended posture just from changing how my pelvis sits when I sit. The other thing that happens is if I have a tucked butt posture when I sit or when I stand, it makes it hard to sit up and it makes it hard to pull my head back into a better position because my pelvis determines all other posture. So if you're somebody who sits a lot at their job, make sure when we sit down, we rotate back and we sit on that ischial tuberosity or that butt bone. If you're somebody who stands for their job or you stand for a long period of time, that can be true too, as we tend to stand and then just hang on our back extensors and hip flexors, which also feeds into this kind of forward head, rounded shoulder posture that limits our breast support. So you can help support rib cage and lungs for better function just by standing in a stagger. So if I stand 1 foot forward and 1 foot back, that helps pull me up and I'm in better posture to breathe better. So that's my pelvis, and it has a huge impact on how I am lined up. If we look at the top half of me, once I get that pelvis squared up, now being open through my chest and having my head back helps facilitate or make it easier for my ribs to expand and not have to work very hard at it. So I want to make sure that I'm shoulders pulled back and that my chin or that my head is pulled back. You want to think about your head being tied to a string in the ceiling, and I want to be up and back, not down and forward. As I come forward, what happens is my body adapts to whatever position I put it in the most. So if you are a long time forward posture person, pec minor gets really tight, which shortens up your rib cage and doesn't let it expand here. And sternocleidomastoid, scalenes, and upper trap get really tight through here. So as these are really tight, it makes it feel harder to breathe. Those of us who have asthma, that's me, when we can't breathe, those accessory muscles, my upper trap, my scalene, my sternocleidomastoid, try to help out and try to help out and try to help out. So this muscle being tight can make me feel more short of breath. My head being forward increases the daily work of these muscles anyway. So both of those things can make it harder to breathe, and they can also create more of a breathing anxiety, meaning it feels harder to breathe because these are tighter. So the solution for that is to just look at where your head is in space. I need my head to be as close as I can get it to right over my body. Now, depending on how long you have had bad posture, it may be very hard to get it into that position. You have to look from the bottom up. If my pelvis is not in a good position, meaning rotated forward with me sitting on my butt bones, you are not going to be able to get that head into a better position so that you can breathe better. So I look at pelvis first, upper back, shoulders, then head position for how I sit and how I stand during the day so that I can breathe better. In our next segment, we'll talk about the flexibility and the mobility it takes to get you in those positions, because for those of us who are older, we have potentially had really bad posture for a really long time, or if you work at a desk or you have a lot of activities in front of you, your body takes the path of least resistance and we sort of adapt to whatever position we're put in most. So we will talk about that next time.